Hey guys, Mark here from Camp Legend, and I wanted to do a quick little video on a game that we are going to be covering on the very beginning of Starter Set Season 2. So we decided we had a whole list of games. This one came out, I think, a couple of months ago, maybe back in October of 2023. And we're going to spend a couple of weeks exploring a new card game called Warhammer 40k Warpforge. Now, I do not know a lot about Warhammer. I've never been a huge 40k guy. But what I wanted to do was dig in a little bit to the game. I'm not going to be showing you gameplay per se, but I wanted to look at the factions because they don't give you a ton of information about the factions. So a quick little look at the tutorial, or not tutorial, like the interface, like where you can click around. When you do log on to the game for the first time, which is free on Steam and iOS, Android, all those places. When you do open up the game for the first time, it takes you through, I think, 2 tutorial missions, and then it brings you in to sort of like the opening interface where you can begin crafting decks and unlocking stuff and playing the game. So I'm going to give you a couple of thoughts. I've played a few hours of this game, and being someone who's played a lot of new card games at this point, I have a couple of thoughts about it. I'm going to share on the show, and probably a couple that I'm going to share here as well, just as sort of like first glance before I've like done a deep dive or really gone in on any element of this. I have some like immediate reactions, so I shouldn't keep rambling. That's enough. I'm going to go ahead and show you the interface. So here is basically the game's interface. And so if you were, I don't know a lot about any of this like 40k stuff. And you know what? Let me go ahead and slide actually to the right-hand side, because I think that'll be a little bit better for what we're looking at today. So really quickly, as you're learning to play the game, I think maybe you kind of get these 3 modes right up front. I think probably the most important thing, which I actually haven't done on this account, because I just created a quick new account on Steam. So this isn't my base account. I've been playing on my tablet. But there are tutorials that you can do when you get started. And so there are the Ultramarines, and these are like the 6 factions that are in the game. There is the Goth clan, which are sort of like, it's weird. It's like sort of like orcs, sort of like steampunky orc type characters. There is, I can't even really pronounce this. I don't know exactly what these things are. But they're sort of like techie necromancer type faction. There is these guys, which they call the Black Legion. I'm thinking these are like the Chaos Marines of some type in 40k, which I've heard talked about. And then these, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't read the lore. These seem to me a lot like sort of like a reimagined, sort of like futuristic samurai type faction. And then this, which is sort of like the hive, right? The endless horde of bugs and things. So the one thing that's important to point out, all of these tutorials super easy, and they will introduce you to the faction and the mechanics of that faction. And upon completion, you do get a deck for each faction. So they will give you sort of a starter deck for each faction once you've done the tutorial. And I don't know if sort of like each of these give you that, but in my experience, when I did it, I seem to have gotten some sort of a deck that I could then go and play. And maybe that's not 100% accurate, but that was my experience. Obviously, the artwork, 40k, beautiful artwork, like really imaginative, really wild sort of artwork. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to go over the factions and kind of go over their sort of special abilities, which we'll touch on kind of like a few of those here in a moment, as many as I can remember anyway, and kind of like maybe how they play, so you get an idea of like how you want to do it. You do have this rewards track, and so I think what's interesting about this rewards track is as you do quests, it's going to give you basically for whatever faction you have activated, it's going to give you some of these, like the sort of like experience in that faction, and then you can spend that experience to advance up this track and get cards like this guy, or packs like this. And you can spend that XP to kind of, work your way up and get this. And you could do this for each of the 6 factions. So lots of free stuff to gain. Something really interesting to note is it wants you to upgrade to premium in order to access like everything that you get on this free pass, right? There's lots of stages that you don't have to upgrade to premium, but then there is the ability to upgrade to premium on all of them. So if you click this, $20, and that isn't, to my knowledge, this is like just for the faction, right? And so hypothetically, if you wanted to access this for all 6 factions, if you didn't want to just focus on one, then you're going to have to spend $120 just to access like the bonus points, and get daily login rewards, which theoretically would fast track you. Maybe you spend $20 on a faction, play it for a couple months, $20 on another faction. This seems like a very Warhammer-esque thing to do. I listen to some Warhammer players on like podcasts and stuff, and they're a chaos faction, or like I only play orcs, or I only play ultramarines, whatever, right? Or a specific faction of them. It seems like they're trying to create, with this $20 buy-in, sort of like a loyalty to a clan. And I am supportive of loyalty to a clan. There was a little bit of that in Gwent that I really enjoyed. I don't like this, though. I don't like the $20 loyalty, because loyalty to a clan only goes so far in a card game, usually for the first couple of months, maybe the first couple of weeks, until you're kind of like, well, I want to play everything. You don't usually want to stick with just one. You'll have a favorite, but you don't usually want to stick with just one. And so, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. That doesn't make me feel great. You do get some daily missions that you can do every day, right? So just by logging in or whatever, you be able to get some daily missions, completing a tutorial, whatever have you, right? It's going to guide you around. And then I think in the Forge, I actually don't know 100% what this is, but I think this is a way of like advancing your cards and moving them forward. I think this is like a way of transforming cards throughout the game and getting better and better versions of those cards. Another way to kind of build up your collection is here in the Forge, which you can level up to 50 and get a cool card back for each faction. So all of that to say, as a new game, tons of stuff to achieve if you're trying to, level up and you really want to dig your teeth in here. They gave you a game with a lot of stuff. Now, as for the shop, $10 for 8 packs in a title isn't terrible. 15 packs for $20 and an avatar, whatever that is. So, but still very much so a pack purchasing sort of game. One of these more archaic styles that we had talked about. It does look like this is maybe where you can craft some cards with this gem currency. You have these 3 currencies. This seems like it's for the Forge, this gray currency at the top. Gold bars is your currency for money, be able to, get stuff. And then it does look like these red crystals are sort of like your card crafting materials. And you can see here kind of like a common gray diamond card costing you 100 crystals, a rare or a uncommon green crystal card, 400 crystals, 1,500 for an epic, and 6,000 crystals that you need to get this legendary. And it does look like this here is on a limited offer. It looks like maybe every day you get a new 8 cards. I don't know if these are discounted. I kind of hope that they're not discounted, to be honest with you. It is nice that it shows you sort of like how many you already have and how many you have availability to buy. And then, of course, we have the various packs that you can buy, right? And these are with these silver bars, but I think it's just grayed out because I don't have enough for anything. So you're going to use your gold bars on this stuff. And so, hey, I'm going to contains 5. So you can go here and kind of get like a pack, and it looks like over time you have an increased chance to get a legendary, which is nice. At 150 a pack, okay. This one doesn't let you choose the faction. It says everything, whereas in here you're actually saying Black Legion, High Fleet, Goth Clan, Shaltik, I have no idea, the Dynasty, Siam Han, that could be wrong, in the Ultramarines, You're actually picking what faction you want. I wish that these were the same. I wish that they did something similar to Gwent. Once again, they're trying to seemingly like make you choose a faction and kind of stick with that faction. I personally enjoy that. I like that. I like being able to focus on one faction at a time and build my collection. I just wish that they weren't encouraging you to be less efficient in building what you want, and this costs you more. 50% more. 100 to 150, whatever. But 50% more is a pretty ridiculous increase for you to be able to focus on the faction that you actually want to be playing and getting cards for at the time. So I think this is a misstep. I think this is once again, I think that Warhammer has its sort of audience, and that audience is typically willing to spend a great deal of money. It seems to me that that continues here. I don't like their pricing. It seems, I don't know if I would call it predatory, but it definitely seems worn out and archaic. The last thing I'll say about the opening, and I'm going to actually switch myself over to the left for this. On the right-hand side of the opening screen, you have this chat here with people in it. And I don't know what this is. Is this the whole game? Am I just thrown in with a select group of people? I'm not in a guild. I'm not in a clan. What is this? I don't know what this is. I asked in the chat on my tablet and never got a response. But there is multiple languages. People GGing each other in this general chat. I just do not understand what this is. And if it is a general chat for the entire game, why? Why? Take that out of there. That's unnecessary. And that is very clearly that you're not planning with any intentionality to scale to anything. Just stop it. Stop it. Just stop it. Okay? Just stop it, guys. Do you hear me? I think that's enough of that. Okay, so really quickly, let's just go through the factions. I'll talk about them very, very quickly. We're going to have to go up here. Initially, you won't be able to see anything. Go ahead and turn off owned only to see specific factions. So your Ultramarines seem to me to be kind of like your opening, sort of like the thing that you're going to... Okay, I got it. Yeah, you want me to click that button. Your opening, kind of like what you would start playing as. I think the Ultramarines are cool looking. I can't say that I was super into what they did, but just kind of picture them as a little bit vanilla. Interesting, this is a really confusing keyword. Flank is just rush or haste or charge or whatever. Just means that the turn that this thing goes and hits the ground, it can go out. That was a really strange and confusing keyword to me. A quick little biopsy on a card. This up here is going to tell you its cost. This down here is going to tell you its health. This out here is going to tell you its rarity, its name, and its faction, any keywords that it might have or abilities that it might have here. And then this is its melee attack stat and its ranged attack stat. I do think that's interesting. Every time you attack with somebody in this game, you can choose to attack melee or attack ranged, and you will take damage back in the same amount, the same type that you dealt. So if you attack with ranged, you will take your opponent's ranged damage back if you don't have really special abilities. So for me, the Ultramarines, just sort of good stuff for me. That was my experience with it. Mostly just good stuff that can, immediately hit the ground and get rolling. Stuff with high health, that sort of thing. Just soldiers, man. Just a lot of soldiers. I didn't really see a lot in this that was super unique to them. I guess this Codex ability here is, does something when you raise up all your energy, so like when you're ramping, and, it has a little bit more defensive capability. I think the Ultramarines are cool. Not my faction of choice, though. The next ones are the Orcs. And the Orcs are sort of like your Swarm class in some ways. In other ways, sort of like the Bug faction is. You have certain guys in there with this Tide ability that allows you to say, hey, this guy's cost 1 to put a 1/1 with 2 health down. When I say 1/1, I'm going to be talking about its ranged and melee attack first, and then its health. Tide 2 allows you to play it 2 more times from your hand, so it's going to be doing a lot of stuff to sort of like you rushing stuff to the board. It definitely seems like more of an aggro faction than some of the other factions in the game. This also to me came across as a little bit, bland as a faction, but you also have this mob. And so what mob does allows you to get some guys down, and they will do their effect whenever another one of your creatures attacks. And so basically snowballing that lead, flooding the board. A lot of abilities right here with mob, right? Deal 1 damage to a random enemy, so you attack with everything. So ordering matters a lot with the Goth clan, with the orcs. I enjoy them, I think, more than the Ultramarines, but still probably my second favorite faction. This faction here was my favorite faction, at least in the introductory stuff as I was learning them. This, to me, is sort of like the space samurai faction a little bit. Maybe that's not exactly their lore inside of 40k, but for me, I found them to be a lot of fun. They have this really unique ability called Shuriken, which allows them to deal X damage to a target before they ever have to attack it. So if you can remove an opponent, so this guy is Shuriken 2, if you deal 2 damage, if that would remove them before you would attack them, then you've used your attack, but they don't get to attack you back. I think that's interesting. And then throughout the game, you get these waystones, and this is one of like the key abilities of this faction. So when a thing with a waystone icon dies, it leaves a stone behind on the board, and on your next turn, you can click on those stones and collect them. And then there are certain cards that will use your waystones. And so, for example, this one here, your spirit stones, if you spend 1, you get to draw a card. And so you play this. You give Vanguard, right? Your other units cannot be targeted, so taunt. That one's pretty self-explanatory. So you give it to a troop, and then if you have a Spirit Stone out, you can also consume that to draw a card. I think this faction was really nuanced and interesting. I think the Shurikens were fun. I think that they're not beefy. Like, a lot of their stuff isn't powerful, but I did find them to be really fun. And so, yeah, I would recommend this faction. Thought it was really cool. Has a lot of flying guys too, which is really interesting. And so, flying works kind of in a similar way to what it would in Magic, so cannot be targeted by melee attacks by non-flying characters. But because everybody has a ranged attack, your flying creatures can still get hit by range. So I think it's a lot better than like an elusive. Like, everybody has an option for removing ranged, with the exception of maybe specific characters and some of the factions that have no ranged attack damage at all, in which case you'd have to kind of boost them before you can do that. But yeah, the Waystones and the Shurikens are kind of the thing that make this faction really unique, and I found them to be really fun. Okay, if we go to this one, and this is the one I can't really pronounce. These are sort of like techromancers. I think they're from Necron, maybe. That could be butchering that. I'm not 100% sure. But in this faction, basically one of the things that you're going to be doing sort of like throughout the game is this thing called reanimate. So when a unit dies, when this unit dies, it leaves behind a remnant, and remnants are destroyed at the end of your turn. However, so this guy is, when something dies, it gives somebody the ability to reanimate. But if something is on the field that you can reanimate, it'll stay there for a turn. Something that's really important to point out is both these stones, these spirit stones that you're going to leave on the board with Waystone ability, and also the things that die and stay on the board, they're corpses that you can resurrect, can be attacked by your opponents. They deal no damage back, and they're just destroyed. So your opponent can wipe out your resources, and they are vulnerable until your next turn. So this faction is going to have a ton of stuff, right, with this remnant ability that's just going to fall. And then your leaders are very consistently going to be able to reanimate stuff. So, for example, Ephemeral deploy. Oh, this is just deploy a Necron warrior. So this wasn't the particular leader that has it, but that's the Necron warrior there. I guess these are the Necrons. Yeah, so you're going to be able to resurrect your stuff and keep them popping up and keeping continually getting value out of them, which I think is really interesting if you can consistently resurrect them. And this faction is dope looking, right? It's got the real sort of like skeleton, mechanical sort of skeleton necromancer, biohazard look to it. I do find this faction to be really, really cool looking and quite a bit of fun. So, if you like Necrons, if you like sort of like technomancers, definitely something that you could check out. The next one is going to be the Chaos Marines. I think that's what they are anywhere, this Chaos faction. So in this faction, what you're going to do, I guess they're called the Black Legion, but what you're going to do with this faction is you're going to be putting on basically boons kind of on your card called Dark Packs, right? Give a blessing from one of the 4 Chaos Gods. So there are 4 different Dark Packs that do 4 different things that will make your stuff more powerful as you play them. This seems to me to be one of the more complex factions. This definitely doesn't seem to be like the super beginner friendly one, at least so far. Figuring out how to get your guys on the board and then keep them on the board and continually buff them with these Dark Packs. We know in a lot of games that is a hard mechanic to play with when you have stuff that hits the board and then needs to stick around. And in this game, you're not choosing blockers like in a game like Legends of Runeterra or Magic the Gathering, and instead, your opponent is attacking exactly what they want to attack. So attacker has priority, meaning it's harder to keep backline guys safe and out of the way in order to sort of build them up over time. So picture a game more like Hearthstone, or if you played the Elder Scrolls Legends, or if you played Gwent, any of those card games, really. So I think that this faction is super cool looking, obviously. I mean, look at the artwork, right? And then you get these blessings that go on your characters, and a lot of these guys seem to be pretty strong. Here, 5 melee attack, 5 health is a great little example here. We have a guy with 0 ranged attack, so he can be attacked at ranged for free. Can shoot at him with guns because he doesn't have a gun to shoot back, and I won't take any damage back, but he does get the flank and the strike, so he triggers something whenever he's striking, and here he's going to get random Dark Packs. There's going to be times when you're going to choose the Dark Pact. Here's a gaining random Black Legion psychic power. These talents, which they have a good bit of in this faction as well, is going to be a card that gets added to your hand. So talents really aren't something that you trigger on your cards, but instead, in this case, it's going to put a card in your hand, right? It's going to get one of these sorcery cards, the Infernal Gaze, or the Diabolic Strength, or the Unhallowed Gifts. I think this is one that a lot of people are going to play if they specifically like the theming of the Chaos faction, because it is really cool. You get the mechanized dragon and the necromancer swords, and very Lich King-esque, right? A lot of big scary flesh monsters and things, some cool stuff. Okay, last faction is this Hive faction, and I think it might be literally what they're called, is the Hive. And so the Hive faction has some really interesting stuff. This is definitely a faction that wants to swarm the board, but at the same time can use this ability called Swarm, which is really interesting. Swarm reads, when played on the left side of a troop with the same name, you combine the two and add its stats together. So here you have a 1 mana 1/1 with tied 2. You have 3 mana. This, you play it to the left, play it to the left. This can just be a 1 mana 3/3, or a 3 mana 3/3, or it could be 3 1 mana 1/1s, or a 2/2 and a 1/1. And so it gives you a little bit of flexibility. All that you have to do is play on the left-hand side if you play on the right-hand side, so the positioning could get a little funky for you. But I enjoyed this faction, and I'm usually not the type of player who likes things like this, but this very sort of like Predator-esque, brutal bug faction, I personally have found to be really cool. And I like the Swarm. You also have this, the Synapse. Okay. When this unit is triggered by a friendly stratagem, which is a stratagem is basically a spell, card, right? Adjacent units are affected by that stratagem as well. So it allows you to kind of multiply the use of your stratagem cards. And so some factions are going to have more powerful stratagem cards than others, but this faction uniquely has this ability that allows you to multiply the impacts of your stratagem cards. So if you have something, for example, that would give this guy +2/+2 to, let's say he was going to give him 2 health and 2 melee power. If you played it on him, he would also give 2 health and 2 melee power to his units to the left and the right, which is quite cool. And then this also has Artifice. It's going to do something whenever you play one of those, magic cards, one of those stratagem cards. Let's see if we can't find a stratagem card here real quick. Just to show you, this is, I think, one right here. Deal 2 damage to all enemies. For each one that dies, heal 2 to a random friendly unit. Okay, guys, so that's the 6 factions. You got the Ultramarines, you got the Chaos Orc, or the Orc faction, you got the sort of Space Samurai, you got the Space Necromancers, right? You got the Chaos faction, Death and Chaos and Necromancy. Well, not Necromancy, but it's kind of like dragons and swords and fun stuff. And then you got the Hive faction, right? The bugs and things. So there's lots of stuff to play around with in this game. If you're checking it out, make sure to let us know. Come over to Discord. There'll be a link for that in the description of this episode. We'd love to know what you're thinking about this game. So far, I think it's a really cool game. I think that the monetary model for it is at best outdated, and at worst kind of makes this game a little dead in the water, with the exception of maybe Warhammer fans who just really love Warhammer and want to play that even when they're not painting minis or assembling minis or playing Warhammer. Now you can play it in card game form. So if you like Warhammer 40k already, almost guarantee you'll like this game. If you don't like Warhammer 40k, I think there's some interesting stuff in gameplay that we'll get into in the show. Always check out Starter Set. We're just launching into Season 2 when this video's coming out, so we'd love to know what your thoughts are, and we'll continue to share our thoughts on the show. That's going to do it for this little video, guys. Thank you. Like, subscribe, do all the things on our channel, and thank you for watching. You're amazing, and we love you and we appreciate you. So you have a fan-freaking-tastic day, whatever you're doing. I hope it turns out just awesome. Yeah, see you guys on Discord. Peace.